So today we're going to finish up the motor mount for the G0704 CNC conversion. Here we are removing the motor and the original motor mounting arms that I had on the initial conversion for about 18 months. And go to the bandsaw with some oversized aluminum bars and chop those up. And we'll pop those over and just mill off the ends, squaring them up. Pretty purely cosmetic. My goal is really to make this machine functional and not so much worried about the look. So a whole series of holes in the tops of the bars. These are 3/8 socket head cap screw mounting holes. Bolts will go through those into the motor mounting plate itself. And here we are milling the recesses for the socket head cap screws. And then some 1/4 tapped holes where the motor mounting plate will attach. Power tap to start and finish by hand. These are about a little bit over an inch deep and blind holes, so being careful not to snap the tap. In the end, I was able to use 2 out of the 4 holes that I drilled here for tension and final positioning. I should have waited until after I did a test fit. My belt length was a little high. So I need to take about 1/2 inch of stock off the bottom of these. And I started out with the face mill, and that was going to take forever, so I loaded up a rough cut end mill and just turned on the power feed and kind of let it hog out this material. In the end, there will be a kind of an arm that comes down over the side of the mill, purely cosmetic, I guess, just to get the overall width of the arm in. So here's a full depth cut. And it really did a great job. I ended up setting up the Noga mini mist, take some of the heat out, and to get a little bit of an air blast. I failed to take the rotary table off the milling table before I started this, and it was just a disaster to clean up. So laziness does not pay. And then coming back through for the final cut, 4-flute end mill. This is what I had at the time. And just get that final dimension set in. And then there's just a little bit of extra length that gets popped off. So this turned out to be way faster in the end. It was a little bit like watching paint dry, but did a great job, and the arms fit great. So we test fit the arms, made sure all the holes were in the right place, and got some dimensions for the pulley relief. So the motor mounting pulley that attaches to the motor shaft sits between these 2 bars on top of the head, and with the belt on is a little too wide. So I'm just putting holes in each end of the slot and then coming back with a milling, with an end mill, and hogging out that material in between. And this worked out pretty well. In the end, I popped these off and took them over to the bench vise and just took a file and rounded the corners, the inside corners of these slots, just to create a soft edge and to provide some additional clearance for the belt as it goes from the spindle back to the motor pulley. And that worked out great. Speaking of pulleys, I took the original J-belt pulley that I had on the original conversion, and we need to bore out the mounting hole for the larger shaft on the Marathon Y522 motor. And so I popped this in the lathe. Was shooting for a little bit undersized with a final bore. And for some reason I ended up spot on, so kind of happy accident. I don't have any video of cutting the keyway slot. I used the lathe with a boring bar and a little 1/8 inch high-speed steel bit, and just running the lathe carriage back and forth. In the end, the mounting bolt for my tool post stripped out, and so it's the original mounting bolt stripped out, and I don't know if it was a combination of over tightening, but certainly the repetitive stress and over tightening ended up with the tool post just rotating as I drove it in. I started to get in to repair that and ended up just finishing the key slot by hand with a file. I had to take some diameter off the M8 bolts that I was using to attach the motor arms. For some reason I don't have any M8 socket head cap screws laying around, so I'll replace those. And here I am just putting in a 1/4-20 clearance hole and then a 1/4-20 tapped hole at the bottom for a set screw that'll go through the pulley and firmly mount it to the shaft. This is really more to manage height adjustment than any kind of torsional resistance. Don't expect the motor to spin. So final assembly, again, just a little bit of thread locker. Those are the M8 Phillips head screws that I have, and for now they will do, and I'll replace those with some socket head cap screws. Put on the motor mounting plate onto the motor with a little bit of thread locker, 3/16 socket head cap screws. I did end up doing this 2 or 3 times until I got the relationship of the electrical box on top of the motor set in the correct orientation. If you have it facing backwards, it runs into the column. If you have it facing forward, it kind of limits my ability to put a power drawbar on in the future. So in the end, it ended up coming off the left side. So thanks for watching, and be sure to click subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be notified of new content. Thanks.